Radio. Facet of the truth. In his video, Stone cited a government program from the 1960s called Project Storm Fury as proof government successfully seized storm. The program would explore the possibility of diminishing a hurricane's strength by seeding it with silver iodide in 1983. The misconception that the government is not responding to a disaster, and the bogus conspiracy theories that amplify such ideas, can have dangerous implications. Southern Policy Law Center has heard credible reports that far-right militias and white supremacist organizations are moving into the region to provide assistance. If past disasters are an indication, drum up sympathy for their cause. The confluence of these two trends creates the fertile ground that allows conspiracy to flourish and suggests that the flood of light will continue as long after the water that in the southeast recedes. The field of geoengineering, which involves intervening in Earth's atmosphere, oceans, and soils to mitigate the effects of climate change, is controversial and worthy of some real confidence. But it's also equally targeted by conspiracy theorists, who envision nefarious actors using complex technology for political gain. Many online conspiracy theorists have zeroed in on the high-frequency active auroral research program at the University of Alaska Banks, HARP, which researches the ionosphere, brains behind Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Google Trends shows a sharp uptick in searches for over the past 2 weeks. Why are record-breaking hurricanes happening back-to-back? Asked one ex-user in a post that garnered 53,000 views. Why do they target the regions that resisted lockdowns? Scenes. And why are they mysteriously forming in the Caribbean? About HAR. Does look natural to you? While the natural disaster wreaked havoc, the internet was too. This is the question: did Hurricane Milton spiral control control, have we? I've never seen a garner so much misinformation. We have just been putting out reams of wrong information everywhere. The meteorologist, Katie, well. I had a bunch of people saying I created and steered the hurricane. People assuming we controlled. I've had to point out that a hurricane has the ability of 10,000 nuclear bombs, and we can't control that. The continuation of a trend that seemed to public increasingly educated by ministers as opposed to expert. Even in a decade by online gruyères, aimless politicians, and an alternative right-wing media complex pushing anti-science theories, the events of the past few weeks stand out for their depravity and nihilism, as Charles Warzel aptly put it for The Atlantic. Explanations, a vocal minority remains skeptical, proposing that the hurricanes were engineered, that Florida was being manipulated, or even that it was targeted at Republican voters. These ideas are new. As sociologists, we research the root of conspiracy theories, and have found they often emerge in the wake of natural disasters. Conspiracy theories explain events by attributing them to the secret actions of a small, powerful group. Conspiracy theories explain events as the actions of a small group. Then conspiracy theories should only apply to events where such influence is possible. For example, faking the moon landing would have required NASA to elaborate set, costumes, actors, maintain secrecy. While unlikely, it is conceivable. However, climate-based conspiracy theories don't dismold it easily. Unlike movie sets or staged events, humans control the climate in the same direct way. See individual clouds per rain. For instance, a whole hurricane is simply far too big and too powerful for human technology to have impact. This makes conspiracy theories seem plausible, as the climate is beyond the direct manipulation that other conspiracy theories depend on. Individuals desire a sense of control and agency over the environment. Faced with the controllable nature of climate change, often in conspiracy theories gain that sense of control. Researchers, people more affected by the outbreak, were more likely to believe the tornadoes were controlled by the government. Importantly, this belief was explained by the fact that those affected by the tornadoes felt like they had no control over their own life. Order is artificial and temporary. This happens naturally, while order takes energy. The universe tends toward chaos. Your house doesn't clean itself, it takes energy and effort to maintain order. Stars burn out, structure crumble, and ice melts. In Great Mental Models Volume 2, we write, entropy is the universe's tax on time. The constant battle against entropy is the driving force behind much of what we do. The constant struggle between order and disorder is the source of change and progress. Look around, you'll see entropy everywhere. In the long run, everything naturally decays, and disorder always increases. Entropy is one of the few concepts that provide evidence for the existence of time. The arrow of time is an evidence to the idea that time is asymmetrical and flows in only one direction, forward. It is a non-reversible process wherein entropy increases. Entropy and climate. Entropy is a complicated term. It is commonly described as the amount of disorder in a system, but this is not the entire story. In general, entropy increases as energy out evenly all the various particles within a system. Due to the nature of entropy, energy especially likes to spread toward particles. We can use this law to explain many phenomena observed in nature, such as an ice cube melting, or engines can be 100% efficient. Some amount of energy will always be lost as heat, and that process increases the entropy content of the system. The concept of entropy has other applications as well. As we have learned more and more about climate, we have begun to appreciate how it is ultimately an entropy-producing machine. Many of the complex phenomena, like hurricanes and deep ocean currents, are just consequences of increasing entropy. Entropy and climate. The word entropy is a complicated term. It is to describe the amount of in a system, but this is not the entire story. In general, entropy increases as energy spreads out evenly among all the various particles within a system. Due to the nature of entropy, energy especially likely to spread toward particles. Use this law to explain many phenomena observed in nature, such as an ice cube melting, or why engines can never be 100% efficient. Some amount of energy will always be lost as heat, and that process increases the entropy content of the system. The concept of entropy has other applications as well. As we have learned and more about climate, we have begun to appreciate how it is ultimately an energy-producing machine. Many of the complex phenomena, like hurricanes and deep ocean currents, are really just consequences of increasing entropy. A study asked participants to imagine living in a fictional country called Nebuloria. We're told that natural disasters might occur, prompting them to take precautions for their safety, while the others were told that such disasters were rare and that there was no need to worry. Participants were then asked about various conspiracy beliefs, such as whether the contrails by plane Nebuloria were evidence of weather manipulation. Showed those in the high-risk scenario were more likely to endorse conspiracy beliefs. When people feel vulnerable to environmental risks, turn to conspiracies to regain control, even if the threat is beyond their reach. The more that people ascribe climate-related conspiracy beliefs, the less likely they are to believe in the scientific consensus of human-made change. The less likely they are to have any pro-environmental concern, and the less likely they are to trust in the scientists that produce the evidence. Project Storm Fury, an attempt to control the weather. The idea of controlling the weather is not a new one. The hope of keeping bad weather away from people sounds like a great idea, but unfortunately, for the most part, it's an idea that will realize. What you need to know. Between 1962 and 1983, there were attempts to modify the system. People used cloud seeding in storm. The goal was to weaken a storm before landfall. As difficult a task as controlling the weather is, there was an attempt to control, or at least modify, some of the biggest storms on the planet, tropical cyclones. Between 1962 and 1903, there were experiments where scientists seeded storms with or iodine with the hope of weakening the system. Cloud seeding is a man-made way to change the amount or type of precipitation of a weather system. theory was that if we drop our eye to the eye wall of a tropical cyclone from an area, it could trigger the redevelopment of a new, larger eye wall. The larger eye wall would then help the storm's winds by reducing the pressure gradient of the system. The hope was to do this for a system landfall, reduce the damage of the storm. Reducing a storm's winds by as little as 10% could greatly reduce the destructive winds of a hurricane or typhoon. In 1963, scientists attempted in Hurricane Beulah, winds in the system by 20% after seeding. This was the first positive result in trying to modify a tropical system. However, the results were inconclusive, seeing scientists know of the cloud seeding of the storm. Throughout most of the 60s, scientists only seeded a few other storms due to limited demand and storm locations away from land. Storms came into question with Hurricane Betsy. At first, scientists planned to seed the storm as it looked like it would remain away from land. It turned toward land, and those plans were called off. Unfortunately, media did not hear of the cancelled plans and said there were attempts to modify the storm. Then hit the Bahamas and Florida and parts of the coast. There was a misconception that modifications to the storm caused it to strengthen. It took several months before Storm Fury officials were set the record straight and confirmed that they had not seeded the storm, not caused it to strengthen. These greatest success accompanied the modifications to Hurricane Debbie in 1969. At one point, after seeding, the storm's wind speeds dropped by 1%. The last attempt to modify a tropical cyclone in the Atlantic Basin in 1971 with Hurricane Ginny. The simple act of spreading out energy is responsible for all future weather patterns. In general, any process would be reversible, increase entropy content. These are actions which cannot be undone and move with the positive direction of time. Rain, wind, and ocean currents are all examples of these spontaneous processes. Even the formation of clouds results in a large entropy increase. Water vapor condensates into liquid water droplets. It releases latent heat into the atmosphere, which adds energy to the atmosphere around it. Radiation balance. So how does this process increase entropy? To understand this, we need to think about the radiation balance. The sun emits a type of radiation called short wave. It has this name, as these waves are very high in energy, and thus short wavelength. When this radiation is absorbed by Earth, it is re-radiated in the form of long-wave radiation, which is much lower energy and longer wavelength. transfer of energy happens in the Earth system, the emitted low-energy radiation has much greater energy than what went into it. You can think of Earth as one giant engine which takes in energy to move things around, then loses some energy as heat. This way, the energy balance of the Earth ultimately increases the entropy of the universe. The Sun radiates energy toward Earth, the Sun loses heat, and the Earth gets heat. Heat is conserved. This might result in no net entropy, except for the fact that the Earth is much colder than the As a result, the Earth gains much more entropy than the Sun loses. This equation really highlights why heat will always naturally move from hot to cold. Since the entropy of the universe must increase, spontaneous processes will always follow this pattern. Project Storm Fury was an ambitious experimental program of research on hurricane modification carried out between 1962 and 1980. Proposed modification involved artificial stimulation of convection inside the eye wall, receiving with silver iodide. The invigorated convection that was darker would compete with the original eye wall, leading to the reformation of the eye wall of larger radius, and through partial conservation of angular momentum, produce a decrease in the strongest winds. Since the hurricane's destructive potential increases rapidly as the strong winds become stronger, a reduction as small as 10% would have been worthwhile. Modification attempted in 4 hurricanes on 8 different days. On the 4 of these days, the winds decreased by between 10 and 30%. The lack of response on the other days was interpreted to be the result of faulty execution of the seeding or selected subjects. These promising results came into question in the 1980s because its observations in unmodified hurricanes indicated that clouds seeding had little prospect of success because hurricanes contain too much natural ice and too little supercooled water, that the positive results inferred from seeding experiments in the 1960s stemmed from inability to discriminate between the expected intervention and the natural behavior of hurricanes. Weather due to the imbalance in solar radiation it receives from the sun. The equator gets much more thermal energy than the poles, and the energy tries its way out to achieve a balance. In entropy of the universe always increases with time. The process, it will encounter many obstacles such as land masses, turbulence, and the Coriolis effect, occurs because of spinning. These two phenomena, the desire of energy to be evenly distributed and the obstacles in the way, form the weather patterns that we are all very familiar with. Weather patterns have an average state, is what we call it. The law is the driver behind energy trying to be more spread out, especially toward colder locations. In Earth's ultimate goal to increase its entropy, weather happens. However, it will never achieve this goal, because the sun is constantly enforcing this imbalance in heat energy. Probably the most misunderstood of thermodynamic properties. While temperature and pressure are easily measured, and the volume system is obvious, entropy cannot be observed directly, and there are no entropy meters. What's the solution? Thermodynamics deals with the relation between the small part of the universe, which we are interested in, and the rest of the universe, the surroundings. Thermodynamic properties depend on the current state of the system, but not on its history, and are either extensive if their value depend on the amount of substance comprising the system, e.g. volume, or intensity if their values are independent of the amount of substance making up the system, e.g. temperature and pressure. Entropy is a thermodynamic property, like temperature, pressure, and volume, but, unlike them, cannot be visualized. Disaster response. Say less about the reality of the widespread damage than they do about America's fractured politics and the fear and distrust shadowing an election year marked by assassination attempts and escalating global tension. State-run media and disinformation campaigns run by China and Russia have amplified and misleading claims about the response to the storm. Both countries have used social media and stories to criticize responses to past U.S. natural disasters, part of a larger effort to stoke division and distrust among Americans. Tales of space lasers, fake snow, and weather control technology, sometimes tinged with anti-Semitism, have spread after recent natural disasters, including a snowstorm in Texas and last year's wildfire in Maui. Perfect condition, conspiracy theories to spread because large numbers of angry people are eager to find explanations. Floodwaters were rising. Hurricane Helene, deadliest storm to strike the United States since in 2005, made its specific to target Trump voters in crucial swing states. Yes, they can control the weather, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the far-right representative from Georgia, posted on X on Thursday. It's ridiculous for anyone to and say it can't be done. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones released a video on X claiming the government aimed Helene at North Carolina. Why? To force the region so it could mine the state's large reserves of lithium, a key component in the batteries that power their vehicles and store renewable energy. There's no saying what percent of these bogus claims came from people actually in the areas devastated by Helene, alone whether humans or bots. influencers have conspiracy theories online stating that Hurricane Milton has been geoengineered by nefarious forces, with the end goal of preventing Republicans voting in the presidential election. Milton looks like another man-made storm, and it looks like Trump voters are victims. Is this really happening? One user on X, Biden and are messing with the weather. Hurricane Milton was sent to Florida, just like the other hurricane, to wipe Florida out. Green later surfaced a 11-year-old CBS News clip featuring futurist Michio Kaku discussing experimental lab research into weather modification using lasers. Lasers, Green wrote. CBS, 9 years ago, talked about lasers controlling the weather. Right when the Gateway Pundit gave Green a boost, Marjorie Taylor Greene's weather manipulation claims backed by science. Let's read deep dive into history of weather manipulation. Shocking facts revealed. Milton has flooded Disney World in Orlando, wrote one known vector of disinformation on X, with the photo, which X users immediately admitted was probably created using an automated AI image creator. The post has already been viewed over 300,000 times. Other versions of the same, allegedly deceptive post were also translated into Spanish and other languages, then spread across. The platform has added a warning indicating the images I generated that didn't such as top news agencies from reposting the images to its official Telegram channel. Social media users publish photos of the sinking of Disneyland in Florida as a result of Hurricane Milton, said the post, incorrectly identifying the location as Disneyland. The theme park is thousands of miles away in California. Hostages are now using manipulated images and propaganda posts to undermine Western democracies in times of crisis. Popular littering online forums alleges that the government did money away from FEMA to fund programs for illegal immigrants, spending over $1 billion on illegals while they leave America stranded, and help is treasonous. Tim Burton, a Republican representative from Tennessee, without any evidence. Another theory says the agency had prioritized diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI, training over disaster preparedness. Immigration, and to a lesser extent DEI, are the heart of former President Donald Trump's election platform. The former president took to Truth Social on Thursday to decry the Biden administration's response as the worst and most competently managed storm at the federal level, before adding that their management of the border is worse. Hurricanes are humanity's reminder of the uncontrollable, chaotic power of Earth's weather. Besides discounting common sense, theories discard whether history shows that hurricanes are hitting many of the same areas they have for centuries. They presume an ability for humans to quickly reshape the weather far beyond relatively minor efforts such as cloud seeding. If meteorologists could stop hurricanes, we would stop hurricanes. Kristen Sierro, a professor of atmospheric and environmental science at the University at Albany. If we could control the weather, we would the kind of destruction that's happened. The typical science goes like understanding, prediction, and then possibly Fleming says, noting that the atmosphere is far more powerful and than most proposals to control it. It goes back into Greek mythology to think you can control the powers of the heavens, but also it's a failure.